Which of the dinosaurs in Jurassic World Evolution could actually be contained?
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Chamber of the Wraith. My name is Brian, and we're here for one of the better videos that always gets released every year. And this is always a treat to look forward to because I always get to look back on the games that I played and really just have a good time with. This is my top 10 games that I played this year. Now, I want to clarify something that I'm sure I'm going to get eventually whenever this channel eventually gets to even 300 subscribers, much less 500 or 1,000 or whatever, and people start commenting regularly again. When I say the top 10 games that I played, I mean that I played. The reason why I always make this distinction is because there's always a shitload of games that come out every year. And everybody who plays games always thinks, when they're thinking about the best games of 2020, they always look at the games that came out, you know. It makes sense, because those games came out, they're relevant, they need to be talked about, and then the discussion is often something along the lines of, this game is the best game of the year, no, this game is the best game of the year, Hades got snubbed at the Game Awards! But I couldn't use Hades as an example on this list because I haven't played it. And why would I ever put a game on a list that I haven't played? It's one thing to watch a playthrough and hear stories about the game. Absolutely. And elements in games that are, not great need to be talked about, and I have done it before where I've seen something like, that doesn't seem right, and brought it up and talked about it with people before. But if I've not played it, then how can it be on my list of the top 10 games I played, or if I ever made a bottom 10, games that I absolutely did not like? And the reason why I say that is because, and one other thing that's worth noting is that I always make this point, but it bears repeating every year. I never lock myself into games that I have just come out this year. Previous years, I've always had at least a couple games that were relevant to that year. Jurassic World Evolution in 2018, for instance, is a great example of that. But this year, I only have one game that actually came out in 2020. All of the other games came out had a proper release in 2018 or earlier. So none of these games are outside of one actually came out in 2020, and I haven't played all of the big games of 2020. I didn't play The Last of Us Part 2. I didn't play Cyberpunk. I definitely didn't play Hades, although that is the one that interests me the most, if I gotta be honest. So if you are coming into this video expecting Cyberpunk to be in the top games of 2020, no. Last of Us Part 2, no. And Mortal Kombat 11, because Mortal Kombat 11 had MK Ultimate that came out this year, no. I didn't do it last year. What makes you think I'm going to do MK11 this year? But without further ado, hold on to your butts, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time for me to reveal to you my top 10 games that I played in 2020.
Number 10 goes to a game that I quite enjoyed, but never really played a whole lot of this year, which is why it's at the bottom of the pack. Maneater was quite an ambitious little AA game, as I like to call it. It wasn't AAA by any stretch of the imagination, but with the backing of an entire state, namely the state of Georgia, behind the budgetary, you couldn't exactly call it a tiny indie project either. You play as a shark on a quest for revenge against the human that killed your mother and just go on a killing spree. And quite frankly, you don't need much more than that if you're playing as a shark. The controls are simple. The dialogue is hilarious, considering, especially when you, especially considering that it's portrayed as a random nature documentary, fitting real facts with not so real facts. But the one thing that I think most people had the biggest complaints about with this game was that it doesn't control all that well in some spots, but I personally didn't have too many problems with it. I just got too eager and thought I could take on alligators as a baby, and I kept getting mowed the fuck down. But if you're looking for a cheap, easy experience, a sort of...
Environmental degradation is a novel driver for conflicts of all varieties.
something a little bit more simple and not overly crazy, then Maneater is the game for you. Besides, who doesn't want to play as a shark and munch on catfish and humans every once in a while, eh? In any case, time to move on to number 9. Well, didn't expect this game to show up, did you? Yeah. Number 9 goes to the cultural phenomenon of the last 3 years now, Fortnite. Now, again, like a lot of cultural phenomena things, I'm late to the party on this one. Again, almost 4 years late. But what drew me in was the Marvel event this season prior to this one, and a friend of mine hoping that I would give it a try. Right, I'm gonna skip this because Daryl Dixon and Michonne are in Fortnite. This is the first time I've opened this up in a little while. Cups and things, and not now. Yes. Thanks for the thing. Okay. Now can I friggin' record? Thank you. Now, having all the Marvel characters here is great because, for some weird reason, Marvel games lately, besides Spider-Man, basically, have not been doing so well. Looking at you, Avengers, but, I mean, if you were to tell me that Mystique, She-Hulk, Ghost Rider, Groot, Wolverine, Storm, Venom, Domino, Captain America, Blade, Black Widow, Iron Man, Psylocke, Cables, Thor, and Daredevil were going to be in a game together, I'm in. That is, by the way, is 17 different characters, and that is the basis for a nice, small Marvel fighting game. And you know me, I love my fighting games, so I have a bit of a guilty pleasure in this just because the roster, in quote, is ridiculous. Made even more so because Dad of Boy of all characters is in the game. How they managed to get the console exclusive thing to happen, I'll never know, but it's definitely got something to do with their influence. Now the item shop, because it's a free-to-play game, it's all right. I mean, I do like the idea of Daryl Dixon and Michonne being characters, and some of the skins look really cool. I would actually like to see a character like Shiver in an actual game. Or Axo. Look at how cute. But that's besides the point. The real point is that the reason why I came here is that while I'm usually against in-game shops like this, the fact that Fortnite is overall free kind of excuses it. It's especially weird just to see Kratos do that. But I feel like just because they have it for free, Epic feels like they can get away with things that no other company, even if it was free to play, could get away with. Oh, look, that thing was gone. Or here it is. Like charging $40 for these. I could rant about this, but I'm not going to. Maybe I'll rant about it later if you guys really want. But the idea that you could get characters like Master Chief and Kratos and various original concepts like the Doggo to be in the game is super cool. And the gameplay itself is actually rather fun. I'm not going to play it here because that'll be 15 minutes I won't get back. But the simple matter of finding things and shooting things, while it is simple, yes, is undeniably fun, and you just can't go wrong with the idea of just sitting down and having a couple of quick games and having some fun. That's the idea behind Fortnite, and the fact that it's free kind of helps that. But that's neither here nor there. Time to move on to number 8. Number 8 is one of Devolver Digital's many darlings. helped along by Mediatonic. I'm sure you recognize those little weasels just about anywhere. And yes, I am talking about Fall Guys. This was an interesting year for me, mostly because this is probably the most amount of time I spent online gaming, period, really. I mean, I'm not normally the biggest fan of online games, but quite a few of them roped me in, and thanks to Mortal Kombat 11 and the Wraith Online series. And in case you are curious, yes, I am almost definitely going to be excuse me, I'm almost definitely going to be looking at expanding the Wraith Online roster at some point. But whatever is the case, this game show starring these cute little dweebs is just a blast. It's fun. How can I not enjoy a game show style game? Again, much like Fortnite, I can't get any actual gameplay just because I don't want to keep you guys on a single game for too long. But while, again, I have to mention its store stuff a little bit, I'm not going to do that for very long, simply because if I wanted to talk about the shop, I would do it in a review. Here is why I really enjoyed the game. No sense talking about what you didn't like about a game that you liked, right? And that is just the simple fun of it all. I mean, no sense, a game is supposed to be fun, a game show is supposed to be fun, and you're supposed to potentially get prizes, and god dang it, it's really fun when you do it with Fall Guys. If the controls are simple, jump, dive, and grab. And that's really all you need to really enjoy the game. I highly recommend, if you get a chance to play Fall Guys, to give it a shot. I think you guys would really like this one. Time to move on to number 7, my favorite online-only game, and one I can actually show gameplay for this time. Do you enjoy the Battle Royale genre, but want a little more story behind your Battle Royale? Are you keen on magic instead of munitions? Well, holy shit, is Spellbreak for you, because hot diggity damn, there's a lot going on here. There's actual lore in this, which, as far as I know, Fortnite didn't really develop until recently, thanks to Chapter 2.
Seems you breakers are good for something after all. According to the data we collected, breakers have been absorbing the power of the Spellstorm. You probably noticed a surge of power every time you've gone out for a mission. That's you collecting the storm's energy, like charging a lightning rod. The odd thing is that the Spellstorm isn't getting any weaker. I'm no scholar, but you'd think if the breakers are absorbing the storm's power, it would eventually disappear. I suspect Quincy will have a thought or two on that. For now, you earn some rest. Report back next week.
Like I said, there's a goddamn narrative that greets you almost every time you open this game, at least in my experience. Yes, you have new emotes, but at least things don't seem overly expensive, right? It's not... The Battle Pass was 1,000 gold, which I had 3,000 of by finishing things up, and gold is relatively easy to come by. I mean, I had 3,000 gold, I lost 2,000, and now I have 595. Which means I can actually afford to drop gold on things like emotes and contrails, or what they call cloud bursts in this game. New outfits. The way you fly. I can actually afford to drop gold on this sort of thing instead of, having to basically save it up for a battle pass every time. There's reasons I can grab these things. Or there's ways I can allow to grab this sort of thing. And like I said, here are your chapters. And one thing that this game has that most other games don't is a full-blown tutorial and practice mode, allowing you to get familiar with new gauntlets which is how you mainly attack, and new runes, which allow you to have special abilities. If you are interested in something refreshing in the Battle Royale genre, if you're tired of getting guns, basically, and want to try something new with new dynamics and things, I highly recommend Spellbreak, because no other Battle Royale is going to let you turn invisible and equip your armor, allow you to run faster, and for crying out loud, allow you to do stuff like this. And this, and this, and become invisible or manipulate the flow of time. Seriously, I love Spellbreak, personally. It is such a cool concept for the Battle Royale that I am very keen on seeing more people play it, and I might play it more for Wraith Online just so that people can have some fun with this very unique game. Time to move on to the next game. This game, Arkham City, is one of those games that holds a very special place in my heart. I genuinely adore Arkham City. It's one of my favorite games of all time, bar none, actually. And it's probably the cleanest of all of the Arkham games. There's so much to like about it. But in my personal opinion, one of the things that has kind of made it sour just a touch over the years is just its age. I mean, this game came out in 2011. The mobile tie-in game that, fun fact, NetherRealm Studios worked on had Mortal Kombat 9 Kano as a hidden boss. But the remaster definitely showed enough in order to really make things fun. Plus, this is still the only Arkham game where you can free roam as more than just Batman. Catwoman is a playable character too. It just would have been nice if we could play as Robin or Nightwing, who showed up later in the game.
I think I'm going to enjoy this.
However, one other thing about Arkham City is that people have kind of sung the game's praises a lot, so I don't really need to sing too many more. Unlike Arkham Knight, there isn't such a ridiculous emphasis on the Batmobile and some of the funny, by funny I mean insane combat requirements or any of those sorts of things. But the combat is still just as fun as ever. But there is one Arkham game that I played this year that I liked more than even Arkham City. Is it fair to say that? Probably. It might just seem a little bit strange to some of you people, fellow Arkham fans, that I put it higher than Arkham City this year. Any guesses?
Number 5 goes to Batman Arkham Origins. Now, Batman Arkham Origins is often seen as kind of the red-headed stepchild of the Arkham games. It's not made by Rocksteady. There's several questionable decisions that were made in terms of gadgets and recycling assets from Arkham City and so on. But overall, for what Arkham Origins did wrong, it did quite a bit right. The boss fights are consistently the best in the entire Arkham series. Full stop. And as far as an origin story of sorts, it's nice to see that they didn't, not once did they really mention Thomas and Martha Wayne outside of having a murder case that you have to solve with parallels to Thomas and Martha Wayne. And the smart thing that they did was that Batman has been around for a couple of years, so they don't have to, go through all of the trading things, although that did become part of the Bruce Wayne DLC, the Initiation DLC. You can play as Deathstroke, which is actually really cool, and you're going to be seeing quite a bit of that when the time comes. And one thing in particular I always kind of liked about Arkham Origins is that some of the characterizations were actually really, really cool. Not all of them. Lady Shiva is definitely not exactly Lady Shiva, but for every Lady Shiva in the game, there's at least 2 or 3 character portrayals that I really liked. I liked what they did with Bane, for instance. Bane was really good. And as far as a non-Mark Hamill Joker, Troy Baker actually did a fairly good job, and Roger Craig Smith did very well as the younger, angrier Batman. And I'm looking forward to showing you guys the rest of the Cold Cold Heart DLC throughout the rest of the year, because it's probably one of my favorite overall sort of Arkham DLC stories of the entire series. Time to move on to number 4.
One of the oldest games that came out on the PS4, now, well, almost 6 years old now, or definitely 6 years old now. Infamous First Light was a real treat to play. This prequel to Infamous Second Son was actually quite fun to play. It had a shorter campaign, and and a few different things that I think Second Son obviously did better, being a full-fledged game instead of a sort of expansion prequel thing. But learning about the story of one of the best characters in the Second Son game, period, Abigail Fetch Walker, is just a blast. Now, yes, one of the main weaknesses is that you don't have as many powers because you're obviously running around with just Neon. But that's all you really need in this game because Neon does not mess around. Believe you me. And one of the cool things is that because I have Infamous Second Son and have beaten it, should I go and do a Curtain K Battle Arena challenge, I'm pretty sure I can actually play as Delsin Rowe. Yeah, I can actually do challenges as Delsin. So that's just a straight up win in my playbook. I haven't played these yet. I'll probably make a series out of these. But in any case, I just really enjoy Infamous First Light. But it was just shy of the bronze medal, thanks to one game that I actually finished yesterday. This bronze medal winner is very special as far as games go. Gravity Rush 2. Now, it's the sequel to Gravity Rush, and as a result, both of these games are fantastic. I've talked about before how Gravity Rush 1 introduced a unique sort of concept for hero magic or hero shenanigans in the form of flying around using gravity magic and such, but man, does it ever get expanded in this game. You have the floatier lunar style, which makes you lighter and thus use less gravity gauge and bounce around more, while the heavier Jupiter style is a heck of a lot better for simple combat, because you're bigger and heavier, but it's harder for you to fly around. The story was a whirlwind and a half, to say the least, because I had not anticipated many of the twists that had occurred. And while I did not complete all of the side missions for Gravity Rush 1, I recommend that you do, because there's a couple of things that could have only been learned from side missions, I believe, that I ended up getting spoiled for by mistake. So expect some side mission shenanigans with both this game and its prequel sometime in the future, because God, I love how gorgeous this game is. Just looking at the press any button title screen and you get an idea just to see what fun this game actually is. And I look very much forward to playing Raven's campaign next year. Hint, hint. Time to move on to the silver medal winner.
Number 2, the silver medal winner goes to the very first fighting game I have ever played. Mortal Kombat 9, released in April of 2011. And I got my first taste of the game back in March of 2012 when I had enough money from birthdays and such to actually play the game. Was it March of 2012? No, actually, that was a lie. It was October of 2011. I forgot. Again, you way off on the dates and such. But this was the game that got me into fighting games, so of course it's going to have a high position overall. And revisiting it for the Fatality Friday Season 3 series was like a dream for me. This was the game that inspired me to put gaming videos on the YouTube channel in the first place. But due to technical limitations and not having a proper capture card, I actually had to wait until Mortal Kombat X to get the proper inspiration to finally move forward and make the actual videos themselves. The only thing about Mortal Kombat 9 is that it has not aged particularly well as far as fighting games go. The animations are quite clunky. I'm not the biggest fan of some of the outfits in this game. I mean, for every Mortal Kombat 9 Scorpion, there's, 2 or 3 outfits that I'm just like, what? Like MK9 Scarlet, for example. What? But that's besides the point. And the main reason why I liked this game so much is something that you won't be seeing because this is the PC version of the game. But because I played the PS3 version first, I made Kratos. And my love of the God of War franchise was basically what brought me into the Mortal Kombat universe in a sense, because Kratos was a guest fighter. And a really fun character to play at that. Still one of the best guest characters in my opinion. And this game for all of its age and relative lack of polish today, it is to this day one of my favorite fighting games, particularly because it was one of my first fighting games, if not my very first. Now we come to number 1, and it's another game that came out in 2011 of a completely different genre. I'm going to be on camera for this one because this was a hell of a joy to revisit, particularly for this series and for what I have planned in the near future with its sequel. Now, I'm not usually the biggest fan of first-person shooting games. I just have not great at it. I'm shite for aim. I prefer getting up close and personal. It's just how I like to play games. It's why I often prefer third-person shooters like Ratchet & Clank over first-person shooters like Call of Duty. And part of the reason why Fortnite is kind of an exception to the shooting genre is because there's stuff on top of it. There's goofy dances you can pull off, creative mode, there's a myriad of things you can do. Not just run and gun and get sniped from halfway across the island. But Deus Ex Human Revolution was the first-person shooter that I genuinely enjoyed and loved to play through and beat. I beat it years ago, back in like 2014 was when I last properly played this game. And playing through it again for the Chamber of the Wraith, fantastic, incredible. It's, first off, one of the main things I like so much about this game is that you don't have to solve the game by shooting it. You don't have to beat any of the challenges by firing you don't have to beat a challenge by firing a single shot, with the exception of the bosses, because unfortunately you do have to tackle the bosses in lethal boss fights, which is whatever. But when I was a wee lad and my dad was playing the older Deus Ex games, the bosses could be completely circumvented without even having to lay a finger on them. You could talk your way out of the fight, you could assassinate them, you could do all kinds of things. It isn't just shooty bang bang and electroshock. But outside of that, a lot of the problem solving can be done without firing a single shot. I mean, 2 of the missions require you to go get information on crime lords by snooping around and sneaking around, not getting caught, planting evidence and finding out what you need, and then eventually just moving in and dealing with them or letting somebody else deal with them. That is very cool. And the dialogue challenges, the dialogue bosses, if you will, are incredible. Using the KC augment is kind of cheating a little bit. It's a smidge overpowered in this aspect, but it's the kind of smidge overpowered that I appreciate. It's not so strong that it completely negates it. You can still fuck up with if you misread the KC signals that you are getting. But even if you don't get the KC augment, you can still try and use your brain and past social experiences to try and figure out, okay, well, the way this guy is talking, how is he going to react if I say this versus how I say that versus push this kind of button? And these dialogue challenges are super cool. I wish I had played more games like this. By the way, if you have any games that let you solve problems through dialogue rather than combat, please let me know, because that was one of the main reasons why I loved Deus Ex. And, I mean, my PC is not a gaming PC by any stretch of the imagination, but it can run Deus Ex Human Revolution quite well. And it at least looks fairly comparable to the PS3 version, and it looks really good still. And the game is almost a decade old. I very much look forward to playing the sequel, and I highly encourage that you guys check out Deus Ex Human Revolution. And when you're done with that, if you guys want to try and check out the sequel before I get to it, be my guest. Those are my top 10 games that I played this year. I want to know what your favorite games that you played this year is. Again, it doesn't have to have been from 2020. If your favorite game was, I don't know, Shadow of the Beast 2 on the Commodore Amiga, go ahead! Put that on the list, and gush about Shadow of the Beast 2. That's part of the reason why I like making these videos, is the thought that games don't have to be as current as the year that they were released to be relevant. So, with that said, don't forget to be awesome. I'll see you guys on the other side, and stay tuned because come January 2nd, January 2nd? Is that this happening? Yeah, January 2nd, we're going to be having some reveals on the channel. See you later.